She been saying this for several. No, she been saying this for a long time. She's been saying this for a long time. But the thing about Bitcoin is Bitcoin is it's the most valuable cryptocurrency. It's the most stable crypto. But then at the same time, what does that really mean? Because it's constantly up and down, such as the stock market. But the problem with that is that, you know, the whole point, the whole goal of cryptocurrency is to be a stable alternative currency, and it's not. So like it's really just a big gamble, you know. So like let's say that Bitcoin did get to $1 million. Would it stay there? No. So it's just and again, more importantly, Bitcoin is hopelessly connected to the rest of the crypto market. It's hopelessly connected to it. So like when a stable coin, which is really where they're in crypto, the most coins are stable coins because they're usually like worth $1 and people will make crypto exchanges using stable coins. One of those collapses. Well, that's the coin that they were using to buy this, and that. So now it's just a bunch of BS. And not to say like there's no utility to it, but for Cathie Wood to just, oh well, despite all of this, despite all the lack of regulation, and despite all the scamming and all the billions of dollars that have been lost, it's like, oh well, it's going to get there. Like, why? Matter of fact, what is the current price of Bitcoin? The current price of Bitcoin is $24,116. At one point, it was 60,000. A few weeks ago, it was like 17,000, 16,000. Like, it's like, what are you basing this on? You know what I'm saying? Like, the only thing that you could base something like this on is that, well, eventually everyone's just going to trust it completely. But look what Bitcoin did in like in Central America, in different places where it's been tested. And it's just the biggest issue with it is it's not stable. ARK's Cathie Wood says Bitcoin is going to $1 million. Jim Cramer says, yeah, and I walked on water in the Sea of Galilee. And again, like Jim Cramer, he was really big on Meta. He's been really big on a lot of things, and I don't really know much about him either. But he's kind of a meme. He's kind of a meme too, in the investment community. But it's like Cathie Wood. And again, we're going to watch a video in a sec, but before that, let's see. ARK Invest founder and CEO Cathie Wood is doubling down on her prediction that Bitcoin will reach $500,000, and Jim Cramer can't help but laugh. Wood sees exponential rise. Oh, these damn it! What Wood sees exponent? Jesus, stop moving. Wood sees exponential rise in ARK Invest. Oh, I fucking hate this website. Either that or I'm just really fucking stoned and I'm tripping. And ARK Invest big ideas released for 2023. Wood noted that the price of one Bitcoin could exceed $1 million in the next decade. All right, let's see if she provides any type of reasoning behind that. She backed that up in a Wednesday morning interview on CNBC's Squawk Box. When Squawk Box co-host Andrew Ross Sorkin asked the ARK Invest CEO she still believes Bitcoin can go to $500,000, she said, yes, in fact, we are a little higher than that in our base case for the year 2030, which is in 7 years. And in our bull case, much higher. I'm just like instantly thinking about many things that impact the economy at large, people's lives at large, personal lives, family lives, entertainment lives at large, that would impact people's investment into Bitcoin over the next 7 years. And for her to just ignore all of that is rather astounding. Like, she explained that because 7 years, that's not a long time, especially in terms of like something like this grand of a vision. Like, Bitcoin is going to be a stable alternative currency, like in that short of amount of time. Like, get real. She explained that the crypto space took a hit following the collapse of FTX and several related firms, but she highlighted the strength Bitcoin and Ethereum have shown throughout the chaos. Now, here's one of the biggest issues that I have with people. And again, there's nothing wrong with, wanting to see crypto do well, especially if it's like Bitcoin. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have some type of a decent, stable investment. There's nothing wrong with that. But when people, talk about the case, rather the current state of cryptocurrency, and they just like, oh well, FTX, FTX, XTF, FTX, and all the other companies that were connected to FTX, they're ignoring so many other collapses, and rather purposefully so too, because crypto is just a hard sale right now, unless you're honest, unless you keep it 100 with people. Like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of obstacles in the way where the crypto markets really have a lot to deal with. So tread lightly. There you still trying to sell this. I'm just like, no, 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 just ignore all these issues. Just ignore the rest of the economy at large. Like, nah, man. They really didn't skip a beat. All transactions were completed. All smart contracts open and closed, Wood said. This idea of transparency and decentralization is taking hold, and Bitcoin, Ethereum are the two best manifestations of that in the crypto world. And again, that is true. Bitcoin and Ethereum has its own issues, but Bitcoin is are the two best manifestations in the crypto world. But there's still a lot. Hold on. See, now here's the other thing too. It's like, all right, now if y'all decentralize this, if you decentralize cryptocurrency, then that would mean it will remain unregulated. Now, further deeper into the idea of like centralized crypto exchanges, they have a lot of issues. Okay, well, if you take those out, then you're gonna have to count on not just count on people not scamming, but you're going to have to count on people being very educated on how the unregulated crypto market functions, how crypto wallets work, how to make exchanges, how to keep up with the values of different cryptocurrencies. That's a very involved task. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a very finance bro type of thing. And oftentimes people who are really deep into crypto, like, they kind of think like, oh, well, anybody can, like, nah, man, it's not even just that anybody can, learn how to follow the crypto markets, but the world doesn't work like that at large. So it would not only would it take a lot of investment and time to learn how to do, but we all only have 24 hours in a day. So the same people who like primarily only invest in and follow crypto, it's like, okay, that's what you're doing with your 24 hours, but you're also not doing this and not doing that, which could be a benefit. Maybe you could be exercising more. Maybe you could be doing other ventures that you would enjoy more personally, but you're not. So again, it's just like, oh, and I'm and that's the problem with keeping things decentralized. It's like, okay, well, if you do that, then it's not going to be able to be this huge thing. And maybe you're cool with that. Maybe you are cool with that. But how big can cryptocurrency really get if you don't support regulation, if you don't support federal oversight? I mean, it kind of defeats the purpose of it, but that's the biggest issue with crypto. It's like, all right, I understand. I do understand. I'm not going to say like I don't understand, because I do understand and do see some of the pluses and benefits of keeping crypto decentralized. But the biggest problem with that is there's not going to be any real oversight. So if anything happens, you can't really do anything, which means that people have to be ultra educated on it. And if that's not like a publicly taught thing, which it won't be, I mean, again, it's just going to continue to be like a fucking computer nerd activity. And that's cool, but you gotta, like this plus a million. Oh, come on, like it's just fucking fantasy. It's ridiculous, and that's why even Jim Cramer's laughing at it, because it's like, and all of that shit that I just said doesn't even factor in outside economic factors like how much houses cost and what's happening in the housing market and what's going to happen in the housing market over the next 10 years. She talking about in 7 years, Bitcoin is going to be at $1 million. You know what I'm saying? But again, you have to invest into Bitcoin. You have to keep investing into Bitcoin if you're going to be touching any of that. So, again, how much does housing cost? How much does rent cost? How much where's inflation at in general? Like, how much one of these costs, you know what I'm saying, makes a huge difference on, oh, I'm gonna put $250 because then again, it's like, well, you just put a little bit of money into that every month. It's like, like right now, I have a retirement, and a savings account, and I do everything I can to keep money going into it, but I don't have enough disposable income to have investments in this stock and that stock and that stock and this stock. So it's like there's different levels to how much disposable income you have or don't have. So it's like if you don't have all this extra disposable income to keep investing into Bitcoin, then Bitcoin's not going to get to $1 million. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's just, and I didn't even name other factors, like the state of the job market, wages, you know, our trade situation with the rest of the world. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, think about how the drought, right, in the Southwest, about how the drying of the Colorado River is impacting life in so many ways, and then how that therefore impacts the rest of the country at large, and therefore the rest of the world at large. So it's like you're not factoring in any of these things. It's like, no, Bitcoin has to be at $1 billion. I mean, Bitcoin has to be worth $1 million because I said it would be. That's it. No other reason. It's just because I said it would be. Like, come on. And again, it's like, how could it stay there? So again, even at that, what is that prediction really worth? It's like, well, it'll get there, but what if it gets there and then collapses? So it's just it's just crazy. And the reason why we talk about this is because there are some possibilities with crypto, at least in terms of mostly stock and investment gambling investments, and making payments with it here and there, because there are technologies that you can use to pay with Bitcoin or pay with this and that. But the industry has really taken a huge hit in such a way that it's just like, Cathie, like, all of this just gonna disappear in the next 7 years. I just it's delusional. Now we're going to watch a video about dismantling Cathie Woods. And again, we're talking about this because, I mean, this is finance. People have lost so much money in crypto. But yeah, let's see what's up.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to Wall Street Millennial. On this channel, we cover everything related to stocks and investing. 2022 has not been a great year for the stock market. Perhaps the single hardest hit investor has been Cathie Wood's ARK Invest. Their flagship ARK-K Innovation ETF has lost almost 70% of its value since the beginning of 2022. This was a stunning fall from grace. When the ETF peaked in February of 2021, it was one of the best performing funds in the market and amassed over $50 billion in assets. As the ETF continued to fall throughout 2022, the talking heads of the financial news media started criticizing her investment strategy and the large losses she incurred for her clients, most of whom are individual investors. The main criticism is that she buys stocks that she views as innovative, with seemingly little regards to their financial performance or valuations.
There we go. That's really basically it. The investment and the intention is on innovation alone and not profitability. And at the end of the day, that shit does matter. In terms of that's why you invest. Literally, listen. Now, if you have enough money to invest in stocks and stuff, you should. You absolutely should. I'm not one of these progressives that's gonna act like having money's a bad thing. That's ridiculous. That's fucking stupid. No, if you have the opportunity to better yourself and your family, you ought to do that. There's a difference between being very well off and being rich and being wealthy, even and being like I'm worth $300 billion. Like that's a bit extreme. But if you all that to say, if you got extra money to invest in stocks, do it. But the whole point is having money to take out. So you have to invest in things that make money, that have profitability, that, oh, well, it's not just that this business, maybe they're innovative. You know all about the company, how it runs, their mission, what they do. You know what I'm saying? But like, other than that, if it's not like, oh, well, they do well year after year, it might be a kind of boring investment. But if they do well year after year after year, and they, when there's economic downturns, their business model sustains them because they stick to the product, like stuff like that. That's what you fucking invest in. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, there you go. But that's really the whole thing with that. And the only way that you can look at everything that's going on in the economy and the crypto market and how they're connected and still be like, oh well, in 7 years, Bitcoin's going to be at $1 million. Like, oh, okay, Cathie.
She created a portfolio of companies that are almost all losing money. This became a recipe for disaster as the Fed started increasing the cost of capital by raising interest rates. Instead of giving in to her detractors, Wood has doubled down on her strategy, buying more and more into money-losing tech stocks. She says that old-school investors are too obsessed with accounting metrics like profitability and cash flow. Traditional valuation methods fail to recognize the true value of her disruptive innovation stocks. In fact, not only does she say her innovation stocks are not overvalued, she goes so far as to say they represent deep value. Deep value refers to stocks that trade at very low price-to-earnings multiples. But how can this possibly be the case when most of her holdings don't have any earnings at all? On December 1st, 2022, Wood wrote an article on the ARK Invest website where she explains what she means by this. She concedes that the vast majority of her stocks are reporting negative EBITDA, according to generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. EBITDA stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and is widely viewed as a metric for core profitability of a company. On this metric, her portfolio looks like a disaster. However, she created a new metric called adjusted EBITDA. After the adjustments, the vast majority of the stocks are profitable, and most of them are substantially profitable. The problem with adjusted financial metrics is that they are not standardized. 10 different analysts could make adjustments and you get 10 different results. So the adjusted numbers mean nothing unless you understand how they were calculated. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into how exactly Cathie Wood came up with her adjustment, and judge whether or not they make any sense.
Building your online business?
Yes, I am.
Go to Wix.com and set up.
There are 5 main adjustments that Cathie Wood makes to reported earnings numbers. Firstly, she adjusts the research and development expense as a percentage of revenue down to the average for companies in the NASDAQ 100. She makes similar adjustments for both sales and marketing expense, as well as stock-based compensation. She strips out non-cash impairment charges. And finally, she treats deferred revenue as if it were actual revenue.
It seems number 5 is really the biggest issue, would be my guess. I mean, again, I'm not some financial whiz at all, but I put in a lot of time to understanding crypto and how it really works with the rest of the financial market at large, and the types of scams that people do in it and stuff like that, and therefore like people's interest in it. And that's how like I know about people like Cathie Wood. So I'm not, but again, it's just crypto's interesting because again, it like blockchain technology does have a lot of really great uses. For instance, like a lot of the people who have pulled off a lot of these biggest scams, the reason that they've been caught is because the blockchain doesn't lie. You know what I'm saying? Like you can build up enough circumstantial evidence against people to be like, oh, dude, you're just transferring money to yourself. This wallet doesn't have your name on it, but oh, look at all these payments conveniently going to it. And so the blockchain has very useful pluses. And I believe it should continue to be developed out. And again, I'm not one of those people that thinks that like crypto is useless because you can make money in it, but it's a gamble. I don't yet. I don't think crypto is because crypto is not the first like time people have made like an alternative currency. It's the first of its kind in terms of like blockchain technology, but it's not the first time people have tried to do this. But at the end of the day, I mean, the strongest currency is going to be the one that's most widely accepted and that's easiest to use and that has the most stability. And that currency stability is based on basically the positioning and the might and the fluency of whatever nations it is. So again, it's like competing with that isn't, not only is it difficult, but in some ways it can be pointless.
The idea is that early-stage technology companies spend disproportionately large amounts on research and development compared to their current revenue. The average company in the ARK ETF spends 29% of its revenue on R&D, compared to an average of 12% for companies in the Nasdaq 100. These R&D expenses will hopefully lead to new products, which will generate revenue down the line. But these revenues are in the future, so short-term profitability takes a hit. Wood applies similar logic to sales and marketing expense. Her portfolio companies spend 33% of their revenue on sales and marketing, almost double what mature tech companies spend. Like R&D, Wood views this as an investment, not an expense, because these sales efforts will acquire new customers which will generate revenue in the future. ARK portfolio companies spend on average 23% of their revenue on stock-based compensation, more than 7 times what Nasdaq 100 companies spend. She argues that stock-based compensation is an investment used to attract talented workers, and thus should not be treated as an expense. This claim is far more dubious. It's undoubtedly true that tech startups use stock-based compensation to attract talent, but large established companies also need to attract talent. The main difference is that mature companies have abundant cash, which allows them to pay high cash salaries to their workers. Early-stage startups need to provide competitive salaries to attract high-skilled workers, but they don't have the cash to afford that, so they compensate by offering a more generous stock-based compensation. Just like central banks are theoretically free to print as much money as they want, companies are free to issue as much stock as they want. Of course, this does not come without a cost. Shopify, which is an ARK portfolio company, has been losing money for years. To conserve cash, they've relied heavily on stock-based compensation, which is in large part responsible for the 50% increase in the number of shares outstanding over the past 5 years. This drastically dilutes the ownership stakes of existing shareholders. From a shareholder's perspective, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference whether employees are paid in cash or stock. It still represents a real economic cost either way. The fourth adjustment she makes is stripping out non-cash impairments. For example, in March of this year, Teladoc took a $6 billion impairment charge on goodwill related to their prior acquisition of Livongo. This impairment loss is greater than the company's entire market cap. However, this was a non-cash impairment and did not have a real impact on the company's financial situation. Excluding non-cash impairments is uncontroversial, and most financial analysts exclude them in most cases. While Wood's decision to exclude non-cash impairment charges was uncontroversial, her next adjustment is anything but. When calculating her version of adjusted EBITDA, she treats deferred revenue as if it were regular revenue. So what does this actually mean? Let's suppose you own a vacation home that you rent out on Airbnb. Somebody books a stay in your house 3 months in advance and pays you the rental fee today. The customer transfers you the money today, but you have not yet provided the service to them. Under GAAP accounting rules, this money you received is classified as deferred revenue and does not yet show up on your income statement, even though you've already received the money. You only recognize the revenue once the customers have completed their stay at your Airbnb. Even though no money changed hands at the time, you recognize the revenue only when the good or service has actually been provided. While this might sound like a mundane accounting technicality, the timing of when you recognize revenue can have a huge impact on your reported profitability. And we'll see shortly why Cathie Wood wants to recognize deferred revenue immediately. After applying Cathie Wood's adjustments, almost all of ARK Invest's unprofitable companies magically appear.
And I can speak from personal experience because my company that I started several years ago called Politiscope, my bad, it basically really took a big hit from the pandemic, among other things, in terms of the product and stuff like that. But one of the issues again with paying people in stock options is not money right now, So unless you're in a rather good position, you're not going to get the best talent. You know what I'm saying? And you can't really be mad at anybody for it. And the more stock options you give away, the more everybody's hand gets diluted. And then that makes it more difficult for people to invest in you down the line because they look at your cap table and it's like, y'all got these percentages all over the place. And, so that shit matters. You know what I'm saying? Like profitability matters, making money matters. You feel? Because otherwise you just got a whole lot of shit on paper that really don't mean nothing.
Appear to become profitable. To see exactly what these adjustments do, we'll focus on one company, Roblox, which went from a $650 million loss to a $600 million profit by applying Wood's adjustments.
Oh yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, I know at the moment I don't really have like a steady pace, but I'm just staying consistent, and then pretty soon I'll make YouTube partner. And then once that happens, I'll just be able to stabilize shit out. I'm gonna do a lot with this channel. So again, that's another reason why I definitely appreciate everybody's support, because even after I stream, I get this out. But the more the bigger your channel gets, the more YouTube helps you basically. And then I'll be able to have like editors, and that'll hit it, so over time I'll be able to have stuff that like it's going to come out at this time on this day. But right now I typically am on generally at the same time. But I'm gonna keep doing this pretty much most days throughout the week, just to stay consistent and to keep the algorithm going up so that the channel can get better. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
This chart shows Roblox's financial performance for the 12-month period ended September 30th, 2022, as reported on their audited and GAAP-compliant financial statements. During this period, the company generated about $2.2 billion of revenue. After subtracting all of their expenses and adding back their non-cash depreciation and amortization.
Oh no, I got a way around that, and because a lot of my appeals is gonna be outside of politics, and the algorithm loves that. So I got a way around that. I just again, but a lot of that takes resources. But I'm gonna be showcasing all types of stuff and showcasing myself doing other things. But yeah, when you're strictly on politics, you kind of don't really have any assistance. But when you on, like you get to showcase in other types of stuff, other like in popular culture, fashion, sex appeal, development, personal development, really good advice, stuff like that. The YouTube does like that. But and I mean, that's how it works, and I'm going to take advantage of that, and it'll be good. It'll be good for the whole community. You know what I'm saying? Because it also, I think that not just myself. One of the reasons why I really like TYT and will continue to work with them is because people like me have a place there, and people like me have the ability to transcend politics in a way. And what I mean is like kind of bring all different types of people into the shuffle. You know what I'm saying? So because I'm not really a traditional person in this space at all. So yeah, but no, yeah, that's not going to be an issue.
Expense, they had GAAP EBITDA of negative $652 million. Long story short, the company is losing money, and a lot of it. Now let's look at the same chart, but
the algorithm's going to like me way more, way more than David Pakman. And I ain't got no problem with David Pakman, but I ain't David Pakman, and David Pakman is not me. So I'm not about to have those same type of issues.
Include Cathie Wood's adjustments. As a disclaimer, ARK Invest has not published detailed calculations showing how they came up with their adjusted numbers. We did our own calculations based on the information provided in Cathie Wood's article. So there may be a difference between our calculations and theirs, but we try to be as rigorous as possible, and our final results come very close to theirs. After applying Wood's adjustments, Roblox made adjusted EBITDA of positive $602 million. This is $1.2 billion more than their GAAP EBITDA. So where did this money come from? Roblox has a massive R&D budget representing 36% of its revenue. Cathie Wood adjusted this down to 12% to be in line with the Nasdaq 100 average. Interestingly, Roblox's sales and marketing budget is very low, representing only 5% of revenue. This is probably because there is so much user-generated content on platforms like YouTube that Roblox doesn't need to spend much on paid advertising. Roblox's sales and marketing expenditure is less than the average for the Nasdaq 100, so Wood's adjustment acts unfavorably on them.
I actually think this kind of circles around to somewhat, I'm not going to, but this all wraps into just what we're talking about, especially together in chat right now. I think the left can, should, and will do a better job, honestly, at exploiting the game and the way things work. You know what I'm saying? Taking advantage of resources out here that we may typically shun away, but I mean, why? You know what I'm saying? Like just taking advantage of the game. There's a lot of superficiality in our culture, but I mean, that's what motherfuckers is really glued to. So let's get those motherfuckers over here on our side. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's not avoid these outlets. Let's, and I'm not talking about like Fox News and shit. I'm just talking about let's play into the culture more. You feel me? Like not at, and this doesn't go for everyone, but I think that kind of some of the public perception of the left is kind of like, oh, well, you're not good enough for us, and in some ways that honestly is true. There are a lot of people in the community that really they're the loudest. They may not be the most, but they're very loud. So I think a good way to kind of break down that image is honestly to just fucking take advantage of the game more. You know, like a lot of leftists may be like, no, we should just shun and walk away from everything that, like, no, we shouldn't, because the world doesn't work the way we want it to. We want to get it there, but until we're there, we have to fucking act like the world works the way that it does. So let's stop turning away all these cool motherfuckers. You know what I'm saying? You feel me? Oh nah, I ain't Jewish. Nah, I'm biracial. I'm black and white. But nah, I'm just yeah, nah, man. Like sometimes the left is just kind of cringe, and it's perception matters. And a lot of the time, a lot of these people with these big ass platforms, it's like they act like I have a say so on. Like, shut up. Like, if motherfuckers want to help us, then let them help us. You know what I'm saying?
Roblox spends heavily on stock-based compensation. Cathie Wood adjusts the stock-based compensation expense downward. And finally, Roblox has a huge amount of deferred revenue, which Wood treats as if it is recognized revenue. Adding all of this together, we get $602 million of adjusted EBITDA, or more than $1.2 billion more than their GAAP EBITDA. However, once you dig down into the weeds, Wood's adjusted EBITDA is so divorced from the economic reality as to be almost completely worthless. Wood makes adjustments to research and development, sales and marketing, and stock-based compensation to be in line with the Nasdaq 100 average. The problem is, most of Roblox's stock-based compensation expense is already allocated into research and development, so she is double counting. Stock-based compensation is paid to employees who work in various departments of the company. Thus, the stock-based compensation expense for each employee is allocated to the department that he or she works for. In the case of Roblox, the majority of their stock-based compensation is paid to employees who work in research and development. So by adjusting down both the research and development as well as the stock-based compensation expenses, Cathie Wood double-counted the adjustment. But perhaps the single most egregious adjustment she makes is treating the $528 million worth of deferred revenue as if it were already recognized. Roblox generates substantially all of its revenue by selling the in-game virtual currency, Robux, to its users. Players can use these Robux to purchase in-game items, such as skins for their avatars and tools they can use in-game. Roblox recognizes revenue when the in-game items are purchased, which happens after the player purchases Robux. However, it can take months or even years for a player to spend his or her Robux. Because of this, Roblox almost always has a large amount of deferred revenue. On the surface, it might look reasonable to treat deferred revenue as if it were already recognized. After all, Roblox gets the cash immediately upon selling the Robux, so what's the harm of recognizing the revenue when they receive the cash? But there are two big problems. Firstly, Roblox distributes its products on third-party platforms, including the Apple App Store for the mobile version of its game. Apple charges a 30% fee for all in-app purchases, including the purchase of Robux. Some other platforms charge lower fees, but on average, Roblox has to pay about 25% of its revenue for these types of fees. The second problem is that Roblox does not create games on its platform. The games are created by third-party developers who receive 25% of the revenue. Thus, about 50% of the revenue that Roblox generates never reaches the bottom line. It instead goes to the distribution platforms like the Apple App Store or the third-party developers. In Cathie Wood's adjusted EBITDA metric, she recognizes the deferred revenue but does not recognize the deferred cost of revenue or other variable expenses. To see how ridiculous that is, imagine that you own an e-commerce store. You sell a product for $10 and give free shipping. The shipping costs you $5, so you'll only get $5 of net after your shipping expense. The customer pays you $10 in advance, but you have not yet shipped the product. To increase your reported profit, you recognize the $10 of revenue, but you do not recognize the $5 it will cost you to ship the product. If you reported this on audited financial statements, this would be considered accounting fraud.
That's what I was just about to say. Like, that's fraud. Like you're just pretending like this. You're just not paying this extra $5. Like
of ARK Invest, these are non-GAAP metrics, so they can do whatever they want with no legal ramifications. But there's a reason that GAAP standards exist in the first place. By pulling forward revenue without pulling forward the expenses associated with that revenue, you're painting a false picture about the company's financial performance. Once you adjust for the double counting of stock-based compensation, as well as the
Oh shit. I mean, I done been through it all in terms of that ethnic and racial shit within the black community in terms of like being mixed and shit. Like I don't, it's it's either like you saying like either it's just like because I grew up in a black world. I grew up in St. Louis, and I'm not gonna go on and on about that, but like like I'm not like I mean, y'all have seen enough of me to kind of get a feel for the type of person I am. And either I'm not white enough for white people or I'm not black enough for black people. But like it's the same old type of shit that motherfuckers will say. So like I don't, it doesn't really matter. So please don't ever like come to my rush or come to my defense if somebody like at some point makes some content like, oh, this guy thinks he's black, like because it's absolutely coming, and I absolutely don't fucking care. So don't worry, because it's nothing new, and I'm well, let me not go on and on about that. But yeah, that's just kind of it. It's just what it is. Because I'm a very very light skinned mixed person. You feel me? So. I just get to crack flaming motherfuckers. You come in my head trying to flame me, you better be real good at it, because either I'm not gonna care or I'm gonna roast your ass even worse.
deferred cost of revenue in the developer's revenue share, Roblox's adjusted EBITDA decreases to a negative $56 million. This is still an incredibly generous number. This is still applying the same logic that Cathie Wood lays out in her article. We're only adjusting for the most egregious and undefendable parts. If anything, the GAAP EBITDA loss of $652 million is a far more realistic picture of Roblox's actual performance, as both stock-based compensation and research and development are real expenses. And the results speak for themselves, with Roblox's share price declining by more than 60% since it went public last year. We use the example of Roblox because it is the most egregious example, but she applied the same
Yes, ma'am. St. Louis accent, still thick, still strong. You know what I'm saying? Still thick in the game. The most recognizable is the ERs. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't say Aaron, we say Aaron. Saying like my friend Aaron, or like I'm finna run some errands over there, over here. Like it's just there. You know what I'm saying? It's just what it is. And I don't know. I'm still country though.
flawed methodology to inflate the EBITDA of all of her portfolio positions. Even after applying all of Wood's adjustments, 7 of the portfolio companies are still unprofitable, including a few biotech companies, DraftKings, and Robinhood. For each of these 7 companies, Wood gives an explanation as to why these stocks are still good despite the lack of profitability. For Robinhood, she says, quote, Robinhood's stock-based compensation ballooned at the end of its post-IPO lockup period, unquote. She uses this to explain Robinhood's lack of profitability, heavily implying that the company would be profitable otherwise. But this is complete nonsense. When calculating her version of adjusted EBITDA, Wood already normalized stock-based compensation down to 3.2% of revenue. The company's high level of stock-based compensation is not even included in the adjusted EBITDA. So it would seem that Wood doesn't even—
Well, I appreciate that, my brother, because my mother is my woman. That is my love. That is my baby. Anytime we are around one another, I'll be all over my mama. You know what I'm saying? I love mom. She is so good to me, and I love her so much for it.
even understand her own calculations. The fact of the matter is, companies like Roblox and Robinhood, as well as most of the other ARK portfolio companies, are unprofitable. In an effort to make things look better than they actually are, Cathie Wood resorted to applying increasingly unjustifiable accounting adjustments, which are completely divorced from economic reality. At the current rate of cash burn, many of ARK's portfolio companies will go bankrupt within a few years, and with some of these stocks having lost more than 90% of their value, it will be very difficult for them to raise additional capital. Wood released this chart which shows how much cash her portfolio companies have on hand compared to their annual rates of cash burn, and it doesn't look great. Of the 24 companies in her portfolio, 11 of them have less than 4 years worth of cash on hand. One of her companies, Invite, has less than 1.5 years of cash on hand. This means that if it doesn't raise additional capital or improve its profitability within the next year and a half, it will go bankrupt. As a side note, the stock has declined by 97% since its peak, and with a share price of just $1.81, it has comfortably reached penny stock status. But I would expect nothing less from a Cathie Wood stock. In a final attempt to quell investor concerns, Wood says that these companies can conserve cash by cutting back on sales and marketing, research and development, and stock-based compensation expense. This would extend their cash burn timeline. With this statement, Wood exposes an egregious lack of understanding of basic accounting. Stock-based compensation is a non-cash expense. Even if you cut this down to zero, it would have no impact on the cash burn timeline. It is shocking that someone with seemingly zero expertise in securities analysis can be managing more than $10 billion of client assets. Wood got lucky by becoming an early investor in Tesla, which worked out for her in a big way. But ever since then, her investing strategy has been a complete disaster, which has cost her clients tens of billions of dollars worth of losses.
And you know, I don't her strategy wouldn't be so bad if she wasn't so all in on it. You know what I'm saying? Like she definitely can see innovation in different types of areas, but like it just seems like she totally disconnects from everything else. You know, because like Tesla, for instance, like I all of my criticism around that is always towards the mascot of Tesla, which is Elon Musk. Ain't nothing wrong with Tesla. You know, Tesla in and of themselves, the cars themselves, the technology themselves. It's just that the stock it's gone down a ton, but it has been so. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. I'm definitely sorry to hear that. But again, like Tesla, it's just like the stock is representative of it. Like it's like Tesla in 200 years, and all the other car companies have just dwindled away. You know, so it's like it doesn't represent the true standing of the company. So perhaps she overlooked that completely. But again, or things like Roblox, like my little niece plays that. I don't know that much about it, but like a ton of my nieces and everything, they play it, and it's very popular. But in terms of just profitability, that obviously matters. And in investment portfolios, if pretty much all of your money is in things that have potential, but you don't pay attention to the rest of what's going on, then that's an issue. But the whole reason we went over that for everybody anybody that didn't see it before was when we saw she's still claiming that in 7 years Bitcoin is going to be worth $1 million. And